right, our next speaker is Penny Weninger, and her story is called Out of This World.
I told everybody I was going to be here today. Oh, I adored my mother. Phyllis Luber raised three of us in the 1950s and 1960s in Newark, New Jersey. And like most families in those days, Dad went out to work and Mom stayed home to take care of the kids in the house. Well, the kid part she had down. The house part, not so much. She did what she had to do, but when she wasn't singing and laughing and playing and teaching us, which was her first love, I remember her sitting at the kitchen table with her cigarettes and her coffee on the telephone. Yak, 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 all day long. Until I got a little bit older and I started listening to what she was talking about. She was talking about important things like community events and civil rights and mental health advocacy. And she was always connecting people who had issues or problems with solutions. We loved her. She was wonderful. She always used to say, we ain't got a barrel of money, but we have a lot of love. And then I became a teenager. You know that time in life when your parents' knowledge base starts, the fountain starts to drip, and suddenly they don't know as much as they used to, while you, on the other hand, you're getting smarter and smarter until you know absolutely everything, and you have very strong opinions about everything. Well, my mom and I sort of bumped heads. I found the fly in the mother's milk. My mother announced to us that she was a psychic. And I was floored because I was really skeptical and that stuff was baloney. And here's this woman that I have admired and adored for my whole life. And she's buying into this stuff. So I said, Mom, how do you do that? And she said, I just know it. She said, the spirits tell me. And she said, and by the way, you know, you have that gift as well. I'm like, oh, no, thank you. No. I don't want it. And she said, I don't know if you have a choice. So we went back and forth a little bit. Meantime, she goes off. She's hanging out with all of these, I will be kind, unusual people. And they're having things like, in addition to seances, my mom is doing things like automatic writing. She takes a pencil and she takes music paper and she closes her eyes and she lets the spirits take over and they write. And she gets done and she's like, ooh, ooh. And she's reading this message and all I see is scribble, scribble, words, scribble. But you know, it made somebody happy. She also did a thing called psychometry. And that's where she could take a personal item, a piece of your clothing, like Winnie's beautiful necklace. And she could take that and put it in her hand. And through your energy, she could read about your life. Okay. And then she blew me away again. She kept bothering me about my having this gift. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. So now I back off. And a little bit later, my pop dies. Now, this was my mother's father. Pop was an immigrant. He was a taxi driver. He had no education, but he had the biggest heart in the world. This is where my mom got it from. He died suddenly of a heart attack. And we're at my Nana's house sitting Shiva, which is the Jewish tradition. After somebody dies, the family sits Shiva for a week and people come to visit. And Nana was a little concerned because in the entrance to the apartment, the carpet was coming up. And she was afraid somebody might trip. So my dad says, oh, no sweat, I can fix that. And he goes to the closet where Pop used to keep his tools. And he goes in and he finds this tool and that tool. And he's looking for this other tool. And he can't find it. He says, that's really crazy because we just used it a couple of weeks ago. And he's looking and looking. He finally gives up. He says, I'll call my friend Bernie and borrow his. So he's walking to the wall, to the telephone, and suddenly there's a thud in the closet. And Dad goes back and opens the door, and he picks up the tool he's been looking for. And he says, oh, what a coinky-dink. You know, he was really corny. And my mom is sitting there smirking. Turns out she has been communicating with her father. Now, she always said that the best time to communicate with somebody who's departed is right after they die. You remember the movie Ghost, right? Patrick Swayze could not move on until he knew his woman was safe. Well, it's the same concept. So my mom is communicating with Pop, and she's calling my Nana every day, and she's got messages for Nana. And finally, one day, my Aunt Shirley picks up the phone at Nana's house. Now, my Aunt Shirley was the quintessential garment district bookkeeper from the Bronx. You could put nothing past this woman. And obviously, she thought this was malarkey, too. And she said, Phyllis, stop this BS. She said, you're upsetting Mom. And my mother got into it with her and said, it's not BS. And Shirley says, okay, fine. If this isn't BS, you tell Dad to send Mom a message that only she knows about. So my mother says, okay, fine. Now, she gets off the phone. I'm watching all of this now because this is really weird. And I follow my mother into her bedroom, and lo and behold, she takes out a Ouija board. Do you remember Ouija boards? We used to have sleepovers, right? And you turned off all the lights, and you sat around the table, and everybody's knees had to touch, and maybe you had a candle, and then somebody would put their hands on the marker and move it, and you'd ask life-threatening, life-changing questions like, spirits, will he ask me to the prom? Yes. Well, we played with it, but apparently this is a tool for psychics. So my mom sits down, and she asks my grandfather the question, tell me something only Mom knows. Now, I told you that my grandfather didn't have an education, right? Couldn't spell worth a darn. So so my mom's sitting at the Ouija board, and I'm watching. And she puts her hands on it, and these letters come up. Now follow me, okay? C-O-Y-N-Z. What'd you get, Kathy? C-O... Coins. Right. So my mother calls, and Aunt Shirley picks up the phone, and my mother said, Dad said coins. And Aunt Shirley said, oh my God, we forgot about the coin collection. Phyllis, you knew about the coin collection. She says, no, I did not. So they get into it, and she gets off the phone, and I'm like, Mom, how do you know this is real? And she said, I just close my eyes, and I think about the spirits, and they come to me. She said, and you can do that too. Way to go, Mom. You tell a kid not to think about something, what do? They think about it all the time. Goodbye sleep, hello nightmares. So anyway, she said, listen, I think you should try this. And I thought, you know what, I am going to try this. So I kick her out of the bedroom, I sit down, and I don't know what I'm doing. I sit down and I put my hands on the thing and I say, okay, spirits, game, hit me up. And my hands start to move, and I look down, and they're spelling out the name Debbie. Now, I don't know any Debbie, and I'm thinking, am I doing this, or are they doing this? Okay, so then my hands keep going, and it spells out the word love. Well, I'm a 14-year-old boy crazy girl, so that makes sense. And then it goes, and it spells out the word Molly, and I threw the thing to the bottom of the bed because Molly and my mother were roommates in the maternity ward. My mother gave birth to my brother Jack, and Molly gave birth to her daughter Debbie. And Debbie had tragically died in a car accident not long before that. So I had Debbie love Molly. So now I'm like, I'm all mixed up. I don't know if I did it, if they did it, but I have a message here and I got to do something with it. So I think, okay, what am I going to do? If I tell my mom about this, what is she going to do? Told you so, right? But if I don't do anything with it, I might get these spirits mad at me for not delivering their message. So I go and I err on the side of safety. I tell my mom, she does her happy dance, and she calls Molly, and it turns out Molly says, you know, I've been in the blackest depression missing Debbie. Tell Penny I said thank you. That freaked me the heck out. So I backed off it for a number of years, and now I'm in college and I have a roommate and I go to visit her at her home. She lives in a house that was built in 1690 and had additions made all during the centuries. So now it's this big old house with fireplaces in every room and windows and creaky stairs that go up to this really dark hallway. And I'm like, oh, this is really cool. The wind's howling and everything. And then she says, oh, and we have spirits. All of a sudden, I'm 14 again, and they're in my head. So I'm like, stop, this is ridiculous. You're an adult, you can handle this. So everything's fine, and then I have to pee. And the problem is that the only bathroom in the entire house is up that creaky staircase in the hallway in the dark. And I'm thinking, okay, I really have to go. So I stood at the bottom of the stairs and I'm like, all right, spirits, I don't want you in my head. And I ran up and I used the bathroom and I ran down. And from then on, when I went to visit her, I stopped at 7-Eleven first to use the facilities. Anyway, so my mom went on with this stuff. You know, she never charged anyone. She just did this because she felt she had a gift. You know, she always did things for people and people asked her and she would do it for them. And so I just kind of let it be. Now I'm older and my mom passes away at the impossible age of 58. And we're devastated. And we're sitting Shiva at her house and one of her strange friends is sitting on the sofa and she bolts up and says, I feel Phyllis coming through. So we're all looking at her, and I didn't particularly care for this person. So we listen, and she says, Phyllis wants you to know that she's out of pain, and she sends her love, and she's with your grandparents, and all these little things that really could be generic if somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes, right? But then she says she has Harold with her, and I froze. Harold has a message for Jerry. He says that he loves her and she's doing a really good job with Jesse and to go easy on Esther because she's having a real hard time. This woman had no way of knowing that Jerry was my very best friend, that she had lost her husband Harold the year before, and that Esther was Harold's mother who had completely lost it when Harold died and now somehow was blaming Jerry for his death. And I thought to myself, you know, it must be real. It's got to be real. Because I was comforted by that, and I knew Jerry would be comforted by that. And I thought to myself, you know, who am I? If my mother always lifted people up, she always helped people, and she made their lives better in some way, what does it matter what I think? She found a way outside the box to do even more for them, even after she passed away. And I felt like really bad because I felt that I had done her a disservice. So I did, I was upset that day and I went into her bedroom, I closed the door and I was a mess. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes and summon the spirits just like she always told me to do. And nothing happened. And I thought to myself, oh, I blew it. All these years that I disbelieved this. Now it's gone. And all of a sudden I felt really warm. And my heart started to beat a little more than normal. And I don't know if it was my imagination or if it was really my mom, but I just felt her saying to me, it's okay, and you don't ever have to go through anybody to get to me because I'm always in your heart. And I chose to believe that. Thank you.